Heidi, it's great to have you here today. You've had quite an impressive background. Naval Academy grad, Marine Corps officer, and you've navigated multiple career transitions after leaving the Navy. So, in your recent transitions, what changed in terms of your strategy in finding those new jobs?
So the biggest thing that's changed in my approach is previously I had been taking the passive approach in applying for job listings and just hoping for the best, trying to reach out to people on LinkedIn, but mostly kind of just saying, "Hey, do you know of any openings in your company?" And not focusing on just asking for advice as I'm trying to transition into a new industry. My new approach, I've learned how to use the LinkedIn filters in a way that put me in touch with professionals I had some common ground with, whether it was where we'd previously worked or an industry they worked in that I wanted to get into, or a company I was interested in working for, and just asking them for advice on someone who's trying to transition their career path into a new industry. That was incredibly helpful and led to a new opportunity in a contracting position. And when that position suddenly fell through, like it was, I had been working for that company for a while and things had been going well. And then just, contracts sometimes suddenly end. I was able to reach back out to the network I had built during that process and finding that contracting position. And within 3 weeks, I had a new job.
3 weeks. That's a fantastic turnaround. So you were able to build your network using the CareerNerds method and then turn that around. And when that job went away, in a very short amount of time, find a new job. I really like how you said that you're a Navy grad, I'm a West Pointer. When I graduated and then got out of the Army, I thought jobs would just fall in my lap. I thought the
Right.
network would just be automatic. But tell me about the challenges that you had when you got out of the Marine Corps.
Mhm.
That network is not automatic. You got to find a way. And so, what challenges did you have when you first got out of the Marines?
Right. And yeah, they tell us the same thing at Navy. It's such a great network, but they don't tell you how to use it or how to capitalize on it. So some of the challenges that I had was my career was cut short due to an injury, a lot earlier than I had anticipated. So I didn't quite get the full career. That was a challenge in trying to represent what I had accomplished during my Marine Corps career, and having it reflected adequately on my resume. Career Nerds did help me in rephrasing things and emphasizing certain aspects of the resume to make it more effective and gear it towards the position I was trying to get. In addition to that, after I got out, I also had a career break. So I took some time to raise my family, and when I got back into the job search, I had that gap in my work history, and I was trying to figure out, well, how do I make my resume more current? How do I overcome that gap? And uh, how do I explain my professional skills from a perspective that's useful in the industry I was trying to get into? And then another challenge was because I didn't have the traditional military career and I had that career break, I couldn't seem to get my foot in the door in the industry I wanted. And I kept finding myself being offered entry level positions everywhere I went. And after multiple entry level positions, it just made it very frustrating because if I'd done all these other entry level positions, obviously I have more experience that should take me beyond entry level. And another hurdle was also that I had an engineering education, but no practical application of those skills. But because of my Marine Corps experience, I had too much management experience to start at entry level in the engineering field. So that was very difficult. And how do I find a career in a technical space where I can capitalize on that education, but also capitalize on a lot of the management and project management practices that I had accumulated during my military career? And this program was instrumental into getting my foot in the door into the kind of position that I wanted.
I really like, Heidi, how you identified the challenges you had, the challenges of how to market yourself, how to brand yourself, and really position yourself to get that managerial role in engineering that you wanted and that you deserved. Heidi, you talked about how the academy grad connections were so valuable.
Mhm.
But before you discovered CareerNerds, you had not really tapped into that network. And we all hear about the alumni networks, but a lot of people, frankly, don't even know how to do that. What changed in terms of your approach and your mindset in being able to leverage the Academy Grad Network?
So I actually hadn't capitalized it out at all. I didn't know how, and I was very nervous about reaching out to strangers despite that common ground. So Career Nerds was really helpful in helping me formulate how I was going to message and approach these individuals that I'd never met before, and finding a way to approach those meetings, those networking meetings, in a way that was productive for the both of us, instead of just me asking, "Hey, can I get a job?" Because that wasn't effective. That got me nowhere before. And I think that was, I tried it one or two or maybe three times and decided it wasn't productive for me. And I was very discouraged. So I never bothered with it ever again. But with Career Nerds, I knew how to run the networking meeting, make it efficient, and follow up in a way that I was able to make productive connections.
So let's get really tactical. You definitely leveraged the Academy Grad Network. You expanded your network within the grad community. How many calls did you actually have with Academy grads?
So I want to say in a 4-month time period, I had 60 to 70, maybe 75 connections via Zoom meetings that I had made via LinkedIn, or an Academy grad introduced me to somebody else that I thought, or that they thought I would benefit from speaking with.
So 60 or 70. For some people, that might seem like a lot.
Mm-hmm.
You seem to handle it pretty well. What kept you motivated throughout that whole journey?
So for me at the time, I was unemployed, and again, I had been on the receiving end of yet another layoff, and I just didn't want it to take 11 months or 18 months to get another job. I could not afford that anymore. And I was tired of settling for these entry-level roles, or settling for lower pay, lower salaries than I wanted. And this was just a more, I don't want to say aggressive, but this was a more proactive approach in trying to find a job. Yes, I was still applying for open positions, but I was also looking for new opportunities that maybe weren't posted yet, or maybe I just didn't know where to look.
And you did such a fantastic job. You went through 3 layoffs in a very short amount of time. Can you share with me how those layoffs felt, and how did you bounce back so quickly?
Oh, goodness. So layoff number 1 was very disappointing, but not entirely unforeseen, just given the way the economy had been going at the time. And but it was frustrating because it had taken me 18 months to find that job, going through the traditional job search methods. After that, it took me 11 months to find a new job. Again, going through traditional job search methods. And in the end, it wasn't one of those applications that got me the job. It was someone I had met at the first job that I had who got me that, who helped get my foot in the door for an interview for that position. Then that one was, when that layoff happened, it was, all right, well, now I'm just starting to get fed up with this whole process. And I can't go another 11 months like this. I can't go another 6 months like this. What can I do to turn things around faster? And I think this program really helped because, one, I was able to get a job much faster through the networking. And when that job fell through, I had kept those network connections that I had made. I had kept them warm, especially the ones where, when I had accepted that contract position, I had actually been given 3 job offers within a 2-week time span. And the contract was just the first opportunity that had been presented to me, and I accepted it. But I kept in touch with one of the companies that had given me the job offer, and that's the company I'm with now. So because I kept in touch with them throughout my contract, it was very easy to just start a conversation with them, say, hey, you said if circumstances change, I should reach out, and circumstances have very suddenly changed. I'd like to talk about opportunities with your company if you have some time.
I love this story that you share, because a lot of people that we talk to think, hey, I want to just have this next job for 5 or 10 years. Or we talk to people that might be, in their 50s or 60s. Say, I just want to have one job for the rest of my career. But that realistically in today's job market is very unlikely. The best trait that I recommend is resilience and persistence, which you definitely showed a lot, because getting laid off in today's job market, that's normal. It's actually much more common than it was 10, 20 years ago. And the best thing you can do for your career is really build your network, be persistent, and be resilient like you are. How do you think you are now, based on the recent experience you've had in terms of having to be resilient?
I think that this is not the first time I've had to be resilient. And I think it's not just a matter of being willing to get back up again. It's figuring out your new approach, because clearly what you have been doing wasn't working. Or, well, that didn't work. I guess you could say I was raised by a librarian that was formerly a science teacher, and I was raised on the scientific method. So if at first you don't succeed, it wasn't try again. It was, if at first you don't succeed, figure out why and go from there. But you don't quit. You don't give up. You keep going. You have to.
So it's really a combination of two things: being resilient and then adapting a new approach and
Yes.
testing new things out, right?
Yeah, being adaptable. You have to be. I mean, I had a very specific job that I want. Well, CareerNerds helped me form what it is that I want to do, because previously I'd been so desperate just to have a job that I hadn't really honed in what is it that I actually want to do. So CareerNerds helped me fine tune that. And that way I was able to present it in these Zoom calls that I had with these other alumni. That was really helpful. And by doing that, I was able to more accurately present myself, my background, and my skill set in a way that was beneficial to these companies or to these individuals.
I really like how you embraced the approach about reaching out to academy grads and leveraging the network that we're all part of.
Mhm.
And a lot of people see the world as binary. Like, I'm going to talk to the people I know. That's my warm network. There's the cold network, but they don't look for people that they have something in common with that they haven't met. And when you were talking to academy grads, how were those conversations? How did they go?
Well, so it was interesting because sometimes every time I would look them up on LinkedIn, and I would just kind of go through their background and see what did they do previously professionally? Did they list any extracurriculars from their service academy? Do they have any hobbies that are clearly represented on LinkedIn? And you'd be surprised. One of them, I guess, did the same thing with me. He looked me up on LinkedIn, and he had noticed that I had done something with a Disney race before and said, do I often go to Disney? And I said, well, yes, I do. And he goes, well, I'm actually, when I asked him, what can I do for you? Thank you for taking the time to meet with me. What can I do for you? It wasn't anything professional. It was just well, my family is going on a trip to Disney. Do you have any tips we haven't been in, several years. And do you have any tips on how to make it a good trip without stressing ourselves out too much at Disney? Oh, yes, I absolutely have some tips. And I can put you in touch with a friend of mine who's a travel agent for Disney. And I followed up, but it's finding that common ground. Doesn't even have to be the official professional background of, oh, we both used to work at whatever company, but we worked in different departments, but we can at least talk about that company before moving on. It doesn't have to be that stiff. It can be more organic. Hey, I noticed that you like to run. What kind of races have you done? You can get that common ground that way, and it just flows into a conversation. You don't want to get off subject with it, but if it's how do you fit that in with your career? Do you feel like at your company, you've got a good work-life balance to maintain your training for your next race, if running's the common ground, and you work it in that way? And that way, I feel like the conversation is less like an interview and more like a conversation.
I really like how you combined your networking by adding a personal touch to your business. And we're dealing with people. And so people want to relate to you on the way that is more than just on a business level. And so you integrated that and really helped your networking take it to the next level, right?
Yeah, I think it really helped because, again, the point of a networking call is you want to be remembered, and you want to be remembered in a positive way because you want them to help you, right? And you've already got your foot in the door. They're already willing to help you by accepting the invitation to meet over Zoom. So you've already got your foot in the door. But you don't want to just say, hey, I'm just trying to use you for an opportunity. And you don't want to be that kind of person anyway. You want to be an authentic person that says, hey, I am looking for an opportunity, but I'm also looking for advice. Do you have any advice for me? Do you know of anyone in this industry that would be helpful for me to talk to, who'd be willing to talk to me and give me advice as well? And that way, a lot of times they don't have an opportunity in mind that they can think of, but people are usually willing to give advice.
I like how you brought up the fact that you were helping somebody else with the Disney trip. And you also told me a story that you helped a Naval Academy graduate get a job at your company. Can you tell me exactly how that transpired and what was the result?
So this was a an alumni that I've maintained contact with throughout. I guess we didn't really know each other at the academy. We knew each other, but we didn't spend a lot of time together. It wasn't until the Marine Corps that we spent a lot of time together. And once we both transitioned out, she transitioned out much later than I did. She was not happy in the first position that she was with, and I think she moved on to another company, but again was dissatisfied with the position that she got. She felt like she wasn't being valued where she was. She didn't like the climate of the company, but she had stayed with that company for years. And again, staying in touch with her for years, I was getting frustrated for her. But what could I do? I wasn't having much luck in the job market either. So we just kind of were there for each other as a support system, long distance support system, because we're not local to each other. And when I ended up at the company that I'm with now, I was so blown away by the culture. I had such a great feeling about it, and I've really enjoyed my time there so far. So after a few months, after I'd had um, some successes at my new position, I reached out to the person that I had initially spoken with at the company when I was interested in a position there and said, "Hey, I have someone who I know isn't happy at their current job, but I think they would do really well with your department. Would you be open to me introducing the two of you and just see how it goes?" Absolutely. Yes, introduce me. So I reached out to my friend and I said, I know you're not happy where you are. Would you be open to working for a data company? I know it's not what you've been looking for, but I do think you've got a really good skill set here that would be applicable here. And she said, yeah, I'd be willing to talk to them. And it went well. And after it went so well, after introducing the two of them, that the person I'd introduced her to at my company created a position for her. And she starts next week.
That is such a great story. I love how you kept in touch with her. You guys were a support system to each other. Then you leveraged the Academy Network to find a new job. And then you reached back out to her and said, hey, maybe I can help you with your career. And there's a job at our company.
Mm-hmm.
That's really how networking works, is that exchange of value rather than just asking for a job and trying to take. It's about giving back, right?
Yes. Yeah. It's about paying it forward. And like I said, she's a good friend of mine. Not just on a professional level, on a personal level. We've been there for each other for a lot. It feels really good to finally be able to help out, even though I don't live locally, that I can help in some way.
You ended up getting multiple job offers in a very short amount of time. What helped you stand out through the networking journey and turn those networking calls into real interviews and land those job offers?
So I think what helped me stand out was I didn't just show up to the networking call and say, hey, do you have a job for me? I asked them meaningful questions. I always had a list of a couple of questions I wanted to ask them about their career. If I noticed that they transitioned industry, how did they do that? How can I do the same thing? What advice do they have? And made sure that there was time for me to absorb that advice. And then at the end, I always ask them, how can I help you? And they don't, most of the time, in fact, I think every time, they never expected that question. Some of them, you could actually see them have the reaction, nothing at this time, but I'm happy to reach out. Or in this case, well, yeah, you're a Disney fan. Do you have any advice on what I can do for my family? I will send you an email tomorrow with all the advice on what you would want and tailor it to your kids' interests and that sort of thing. And I think that's what made people remember you. They remembered me because I took the time to follow up. I didn't just say, what can I do for you? Okay, we part ways and never speak again. Whether or not they gave me another connection or I felt like it was a truly productive call, I always followed up at least I tried to do it within 24 hours, but definitely within 48 hours, following up and say, thank you so much for taking the time. I would look back on my notes because I would take notes during this call and make sure that it wasn't just a generic message. It was, I really appreciate the advice you had for me on X, Y, and Z. And if anything does come up in the future, please reach out. If they did say there was anything I could do for them, I would say, and I will be happy to follow up if I hear anything about A, B, or C.
You really did networking so well. You did preparation, you offered to help, and you did the follow up. Really important things. So let's talk about the preparation because a lot of people think they're just going to go into networking and wing it. But you actually looked at their profile, you prepared questions, you prepared for how to connect the dots. Tell us a little about the preparation you did.
So once I had something scheduled, I would look this person up on LinkedIn again, and I would look through their profile, and I would kind of go through everything that I could see. And I limited it to LinkedIn. I think the furthest I went beyond that was if they had their company website listed, I might look up their company. If they had a current company, that was something that I wanted to do. Usually, I'd look it up on LinkedIn, but if they didn't have a lot of information, I'd look at the company site as well, and just try to come up with meaningful questions. At least four. You'd probably only ask two or three, but come up with at least four questions in case the conversation runs dry. And also, I would look up any open job opportunities that were listed with their company. So if there was something I was interested in, I could ask them, do you know the person who's hiring for this? Do you know the person that I should talk to about this position? And that really helped make the meetings be truly productive. And it felt like that was a lot of what I did to prepare. And I would take notes before the call. And then I would take notes during the call. And then because my career nerds coach kept me honest, I had a spreadsheet to keep track of, okay, I contacted this person, I've got it scheduled for this date, and I color coded it. So it was, well, now I've interviewed with them, but I need to follow up. And here's who they connected me with. And that person gets on the list too. Okay, I have followed up, here are my notes. And just kept up to date with that spreadsheet. And that spreadsheet is what I refer back to keep what I call keeping my contact list warm, my network warm. So they're no longer cold contacts, they're warm contacts.
I love how you took it seriously because a lot of people, they don't treat finding a job as if it was a job. It is a job.
Oh, it was a full-time job.
Yeah. And you excelled at it. So tell me a little bit about the journey on the networking calls. You said 60 or 70. Obviously, what my experience is that people maybe at the beginning are a little bit rusty, and then later they get better and they get really good, like the crawl, walk, run stage.
Mhm.
Is that what you went through? What was the journey on the networking calls like for you?
So the networking calls, it wasn't strange to me to talk to strangers. Reaching out on social media to cold contacts, that was terrifying, yes. But as far as just talking to strangers, I had at least had a lot of experience in that with my military career. And public speaking was something that I was very familiar with. So I was comfortable once we were in that Zoom call and talking. It was the initial reaching out that was nerve-wracking for me. Once we were in the call, it was a crawl, walk, run in setting up how I was going to run the meeting to make sure it stayed within 20 to 30 minutes and didn't go over, and trying my best to respect their time because they took time out of their workday to speak to me, or take time out of their family time maybe to speak with me. So I wanted to make sure I didn't take that for granted. And then as I got more comfortable with the process, I found myself taking shorter and shorter notes because I already knew this is my rhythm. I'm going to spend the first couple minutes introducing myself and listening to them, let them introduce themselves. And then I'm going to just start asking them about them. And then asking, what advice do you have for someone like me who's trying to transition? Or what advice do you have for someone like me who has a technical education and is trying to get a technical professional background? And when I approached it that way, I was able to get better responses that even if it didn't lead to a job at the end of the conversation, it at least led to, okay, maybe I want to rephrase my resume to say this. Because if you just ask someone, hey, do you have a job? Or, hey, can you look at my resume and give you feedback? Everyone's got an opinion on how your resume should look. So I tried to shy away from how to phrase my resume in terms of my questions with networking, but I did keep it in the back of my mind for what I was comfortable with editing for my resume.
Heidi, we talked about the past layoffs. You went through 3 layoffs in a very short amount of time. So right now you're happy where you are. Things are going well. What if you encounter a layoff in the future? What are you going to do?
So yes, 3 years in a row, three tax seasons in a row, I got laid off. So I'm probably going to be nervous just by default next tax season. I already have a battle plan in place. I mean, I've got this network. I know how to grow it even further. I know what I need to do to keep the network warm. I think that's what helped me bounce back so well after my most recent layoff, because I had kept my network warm and I was very comfortable reaching out. I felt comfortable approaching, and within 6 days I had an interview, and within 5 days of that interview I had a job offer, and within a week and a half of that job offer I started my new job. I was able to go from being laid off to starting my new job, and between the severance and the salary, I didn't have a pay gap during that time at all. And it was all because I had kept up with the network. I had used the tools CareerNerds had given me to give myself a safety net. So if I were to find myself in a layoff position again, I know to just go back to the basics, continue what I'm doing with CareerNerds, go back to the network. Maybe it won't be a 3-week turnaround, but maybe it is. Either way, I'm going to be okay.
I like how you're prepared for something that might happen because, you know, there's a thing we talk about career insurance or having a backup plan. A lot of people, when they get into a job, the first thing they do is stop networking because they're like, oh, I have a job now and things are all set.
Mhm.
But in today's work environment, you can never settle. You can never just kick back and think, hey, nothing will happen to my career
Right.
because we're always living in uncertain time, right?
Right. I think you've got an excellent point there, in that you can't just settle. You want to have some time to settle into your new job so you can get into your cadence and your rhythm, but you don't want to completely forget about networking because you just never know what's going to happen. And it can happen so suddenly, and you need to be prepared. And you need to be prepared beyond, okay, I've got savings to hold me over for this amount of time. You need to be prepared to jump right into, hey, I'm looking for another opportunity. Do you know anyone who's looking around? Do you have any advice? I'm actually thinking I might want to shift my career in this direction. Do you have any advice on how to do that?
Yeah, keeping your network warm is one of the most valuable things people can do for their career. I mean, Grant Cardone and other people say your network is your net worth. And keeping that warm, keeping that alive at all times in your career is always a good idea. So, Heidi, let me ask you, if someone is struggling right now to find their next job, what things would you advise them to do right now, today?
So, number one, learn how to network effectively. Go into a networking call with more than just, do you have a job for me? And how can you help me? That's not going to get you remembered in a positive light. So learn how to network effectively, learn how to run those meetings in a productive way, then follow up. Keep that network going. Don't stop. You have to keep the momentum going. Be open to making adjustments to your resume. And I don't mean looking at job descriptions and using Chat GPT to tailor your resume to that position. No, I mean doing it yourself. Don't just, maybe Chat GPT can help you get started on it if you need a foundation. But for the most part, you need to be personally tailoring your resume to what you think is going to be right for that position. And then lastly, make sure, for me, the struggle was not having a focus in what type of position I wanted to do, because project management was what I wanted to do. And it was a very broad term. Technical project management, also very broad term. So having a focus on what industry you want to work in, what kind of position you're looking for is key, but also keeping an open mind to positions that are related or in related fields. For instance, I had been looking towards getting a technical PM or technical related PM position in energy or something engineering or something technological. And I guess I wasn't focusing a whole lot on data and data analysis, but I kept an open mind, and now I've got a PM position at a data company.
Well, Heidi, that is great advice for someone who's in a job transition and looking for their next role. Thank you so much for the time today. You're a great inspiration to everybody out there who's looking for a job. Appreciate the time today.
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for the Career Nerds program. It's been so monumental to help me in my career going forward.
Thank you.